minute. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is our 49th session of this thing, which means we started a year ago. And it just blows my mind that we've been doing this every week for a year now. And we're on step 8. This is the third part of step 8. So we're going to begin as we always begin with some readings. Here we go. Welcome to this session of Wandering Through the Big Book. This is not a meeting of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no group conscience, no seventh tradition, no requirement for membership. Anyone is welcome. Our primary purpose is taking an in-depth look at the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, in order to deepen and strengthen our own recovery, to try to help others to do the same, and try to become trusted servants of our fellowship. We are seeking conscious contact by trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. And we're trying to improve that conscious contact by practicing steps 10, 11, and 12 every day and applying the spiritual principles we are learning to the details of our ordinary day-to-day lives. We will begin this gathering with a moment of silence to reflect on why we are here. Now we're going to go through our 5 readings. Christina, you've got number 1.
Good morning. 1, I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. Perhaps you came to scoff, you will remain to pray. Page 0, right before page 1.
And Jason, number 2.
Jason, alcoholic. No attitude of holier than thou, no fees to pay.
Go ahead, Jason.
I'm working my way back into it. No attitude of holier than thou, no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. Page 18. And be quick to see where religious people are right. Page 87.
Okay, thank you. And Robin, number 3.
I'm so sorry, I was unmuted, but I'm trying to get a grip. Robin, burping alcoholic. Number 3, if you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe you have but 2 alternatives. One is to go on to the bitter end, blotting out of your consciousness how miserable you really are, page 25, and the other to ask our Creator each morning in meditation to show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, page 83. I'm wicked sorry, Jack.
Thanks, Robin. And Jamie, number 4.
Number 4, every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will for us into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. This is the proper use of the will, page 85.
Thank you. And then Amy, number 5.
Just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and do as I think God would have me do, will I be enabled to experience spiritual serenity right in the midst of the human calamity, page 68. Head in the clouds and feet firmly on the ground, page 130.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I'm going to mute everybody. And here we go. Okay, so this is step 8, part 3. We did a little reading, the first part, and last week we were talking about self-condemnation and the things that get in our way, and we're continuing that discussion today. And but I want to say a couple of things beforehand. So on a weekly basis, I Zoom with a good friend that I've known in AA for I don't know, 12 years now. And he and I are both in our mid-70s, and he's a real fan of the fellowship, and we were talking the other day, and we both were saying, you know, I'm the happiest I think I've ever been. And I just wanted to remark on that because it's true for me, and I have had this really rough period, but it feels like it's behind, and I mean, Amy likes to introduce herself as an enthusiastic alcoholic, and I'm just the same way. My level of enthusiasm for this deal, and I was thinking, so part of my history is that in my early 20s, I spent 5 years at a Zen Buddhist meditation center and consciously seeking a spiritual awakening. And I remember first walking into AA and becoming aware of step 12 and this idea of having had a spiritual awakening. And I'm thinking, what do these guys know about a spiritual awakening? You know, these Zen people, they know about a spiritual awakening. What's this? This can't be for, and I remember an old timer saying, this is a real spiritual path. And my scoffing contempt prior to investigation mind said, we'll see. And I remember my friend saying in a meeting, I have had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And I remember being struck, wow, I hope I can say that one day. And, but I have had a spiritual awakening, but it's a good question. What does that mean? And we were talking earlier in the meeting about fear, and again, this is personal. This may not work for you, but I believe that fear is a natural response of my living body to keep it alive. That there are things that threaten my body's existence, and fear gets me to do things to avoid those threats. And when the fears get into my mind, though, my human mind, my human thinking, I blow them way out of proportion. I just blow them up huge. And but it's part of the human experience. And I believe at the same time, more than believe, I've experienced times when I'm experiencing human fear, and yet there's something else in my awareness that does not experience fear. And this is a little theoretical, but I think that this spiritual part that the book promises early in the book is deep down in every one of us, this fundamental idea of God. It calls it idea. I think of it as nature or reality or something. And I think it's my soul. I'm comfortable with using that word. It knows it's eternal, or at least it has a lot longer life than 80 years or whatever it is that we normally have. So it's not, it doesn't have the same fear of death that my body does. And I mean, it's in my body's DNA to survive. And it's in my mind's DNA to be selfish as a way of ensuring my survival. And then somebody like Saint Ignatius comes along, you know, and says, well, you know, it really doesn't matter whether you have a long life, a short life, a rich life, a poor life, a healthy life, an unhealthy life, and an honored life or a dishonored life. It doesn't matter. And we're going, you know, what? What do you mean it doesn't matter? And I think what he's saying is, if you can get more involved with well, what's he say? He says, the primary purpose of your life is to love, honor, and serve your creator and thereby save your soul. Dude, what do you mean? You know, our book, page 68, says we are in this world to play the role God assigns. And if you're reading the book where you're assuming they're saying their truth, you know, the question is that my truth? And you know, we've talked about it. Absolutely not. I'm not playing the role anybody else is assigning me. I'm working on my role, and I'm working on your role, and trying to make the whole, what's it saying, step 3, where each person is like an actor trying to run the whole show, trying to arrange everything to suit what I think my life should look like. And then this Ignatius guy comes along and says, well, do that if you want, but I don't think that's your primary purpose. And I think you'd experience serenity a lot more if you were living to your primary purpose. And page 68 says that, you know, just to the extent that I humbly rely on my creator. Of course, that's a whole question we haven't really talked about. Did I create myself? You know, for me, I easily get confused because on the level of the body and the mind, I can make a difference. I can make a difference in the way my body looks, and I can make a difference in the way my mind thinks by doing certain things. But on the level of spirit, I know, at least I know for me, I did not create my soul. Just to the extent that I humbly rely on my spiritual consciousness and behave in a way that's in accord with the way I think my spiritual consciousness wants me to behave, will I be enabled to match the human calamity. I love the way it doesn't soft pedal at all. The human calamity with spiritual serenity. I mean, I can't do this, but I can theoretically say it. It means I could watch people be violent with each other and experience serenity. Doesn't mean I wouldn't try to do something, but I would experience serenity. I don't know where that came from, but all right. So today we're talking about step 8 and becoming willing to make amends, and the relationship to self-condemnation, because I believe in my experience that self-condemnation is one of the most serious obstacles to the peace of God. That when I am condemning myself, and in my case, it turns into hatred. It's not just judgment, it's hatred, which is a ugly, awful feeling. And when I'm in that, hating myself for some stupid behavior, life feels awful, awful. And the net result for me was laying in bed 8 hours a day, and then laying in bed another 8 hours a day, and just getting up to, and I would get up and I would feel nauseated by life or whatever it was I was supposed to do. And I'm not feeling that today. As I said earlier, I'm more excited than I feel I've ever been. I don't want to get off the track here. So self-condemnation is a huge problem for me. And my experience in amends is that when I ask higher power, and as higher power speaks through my sponsor, because that's the way it works, or you, one of you, I get guidance on things that I can do to overcome hating myself. And then when you see it work, golly, I just think that's pretty exciting. And one of the magic things, remember we read 2 weeks ago, it's at the top of, let's see, we got 6 and 7 at the top of 76, and then they start into 8 and 9. And so at the top of 77, it says, you know, at the moment we're trying to get our lives in order, but our real purpose, our primary purpose, is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And it's just like that line of, we're in this world to play the role God assigns. Are you freaking kidding me? No. Are you telling me that way back there in step 3, when I was making this decision to grow along spiritual lines, or to try to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood God, I was actually deciding to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me? Hold on. You know, I think the great tragedy of AA, and this is side by side with the great power and effectiveness of AA, is how many people get somewhere in the steps and they get comfortable enough with their own inner feeling state that they stop and they don't proceed with the rest of this stuff. And I think that's the hardest work. If you're trying to sponsor another, that's the hardest thing, is keeping people involved, keeping people moving, and trying to do everything you can. And, you know, we've talked about all these promises in all the steps that can be used as a motivational thing. And you remember a couple of weeks ago, just talking about realizing a miracle that's taken place in your life. One is that normally you'd be thinking about drinking, and you're not thinking about drinking. Doesn't mean you don't need relief from your own mind, but you're not equating relief in your own mind with drinking alcohol. It's a 10-step promise, and most of us we recognize, I didn't do that. I'm not sure what did that, but, you know, in my case, I came in here late. So I drank for almost a half a century, almost 50 years. It was the most important fact of my life. How about that? That I could drink and instantly feel better. And if I didn't wind up hungover every morning, I might still be drinking. But I couldn't handle the hangovers. I don't want to get off track. So that's the first one. You know, I'm not thinking about drinking, and that's a miracle that I didn't make happen. And then the second one is on page 51, where it says, it starts on somewhere else where, you know, here are many people, worldly indeed, who are experiencing their lives fundamentally differently, and eventually gets around to saying the consciousness of the presence of God is the most important fact of their life. That's another level. You know, it's like I can say that today. I mean, I got a lot of other important facts, but I can say that today. It's the most important fact of my life, and it's why I'm sure I've said this, that people say, thank God for AA. You know, early on, you're going, thank God for AA. I've tried all this different stuff to reconcile with my life, and none of it's worked, and this is working. Thank God for AA. And then eventually you're saying, wow, thank AA for God. Wow. I am so glad I'm an alcoholic. I'm absolutely convinced that if life hadn't broken down the way it broke down, I hadn't come in here, spent time with you people, read the book, done this stuff, I don't think I ever would have experienced the level of enthusiasm about life that I feel today. Never, no way. And then we get this third promise that in the fifth step, which is, it's funny that the 10th step is the first one, you know, the miracle of not wanting to drink. And it's in We Agnostics about this, the consciousness of the presence of God, the most important fact. This one's in the fifth step. We will feel as though we are walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe on the broad highway, which is capitalized. I've had enough glimmers of that to go, wow, that's what I want. I want more of that. I want more of this walking on a broad highway instead of a difficult, thorny, you know, the paths here in Maine are roots and rocks and mud puddles and slippery ice. Broad highway. Any rate, okay, so page 72, the start of Into Action. We're trying to get a new relationship. We're trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship, and to discover the obstacles in our path. What are the obstacles in my path to a relationship with higher power, higher self, soul, whatever you want? And I'm telling you, for me, self-condemnation is probably one of the biggest obstacles. And what's really hard to see is that it's a power grab on the part of the ego. I'm also convinced today that my ego, you know, the 10th step says that we read it. The 10th step says, every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into everything we do. What a high bar that is. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. You kidding me? Now I lost my train of thought. I don't know. So any rate, what gets in the way, I feel like, well, let me go in this direction. I love it when the book gives us little formulas, because I like formulas and little nifty ways to tell us what to do. And, you know, we've talked in here a lot about pause, ask, listen, do. We got to stop what we're doing enough to be able to take a look at it, to ask, what would you have me do in this situation? To listen for guidance, and finally to do as we're directed to do. And it shows up in step 11, which is, for me, the real reason we're here, the real reason we do all this is to get to serious step 11. You know, in a couple of pages, the book is telling us, here's what you do in the evening, here's what you do in the morning, here's what you do all through the day. That's a spiritual way of life. 10 is preparation for 11, and 12 is what we do as a result of 11. And that's the pause and the ask and the listen and the do. The pause is the 10, the ask and listening is 11, and doing is the 12. So pause, ask, listen, do. So I love that. And then there's one, empty me, heal me, guide me, use me. I love that one too, because especially when I'm in real difficulty, the idea of empty me and heal me seems to be a way out, seems to be a way out of the negative state that I'm in. But one that I really love that shows up before the third step prayer is, first of all, quit playing God. Next, invite God in. The book doesn't say invite God in. It says we're going to try to relate to higher power as our director, we're the actor, as our principal, and we're the agent, as our parent, and we're the child. But the idea is I'm going to invite this power of love and intelligence into my life, and I'm going to try to relate to it, because trouble with relationships is the first of the bedevilments. So I'm going to try to relate to this thing. And then finally, I'm going to do as directed. It's in the third step promises that at the top of the next page, must be 63. If we keep close to our new employer and do as we think our new employer wants us to do, we'll be given everything we need. So quit playing God, invite God in, do as directed. And a wonderful 9 words, right? Quit playing God, invite God in, do as directed. 9 words to give us, and the pause, isn't the pause quit playing God? You know, so what I'm trying to get to is my self-condemnation is playing God. It's me playing God and judging my own life. And why when we read these words, you know, show me the way of patience and tolerance and kindness and love. Keep me out of my contempt prior to investigation. Well, I'm all wired up today, so whatever it was, it just disappeared again. But okay, so oh, I know, but it was tolerant. You know, my intolerance is my judgmental nature, and so when you get to self-condemnation, the answer is self-forgiveness. And I think I told you earlier how I went to this therapy when I was deeply depressed. I went to this therapist, and she immediately started talking about self-forgiveness and gave me a bunch of one book called Radical Self-Forgiveness and all this stuff. And I just remember, you know, it was like, I seem to have a much easier time forgiving you than forgiving me. And but what I'm really trying to get to is if I'm serious about quitting playing God, I gotta quit condemning myself. I gotta quit judging myself for whatever it is. I cannot let God in. I cannot invite God in when I'm so busy up here doing this stuff. You know, when you're on your own case, and I think what was so challenging for me was how powerless I was over it. It was coming out, and I couldn't do anything. The drugs didn't work. The therapy didn't work. It was just awful. But I really experienced powerlessness in a deeper way, even than powerless over alcohol. Powerlessness over your own personality. That is terrifying. When you feel bad and you can't do anything about it, you realize you got all this mental momentum going on within yourself, about yourself. Wow. And it's why I'm such a fan of the prayer for removal, and why my experience with the prayer for removal of fear, the first time it happened early for me, I thought, wow, this prayer stuff, this is for real. This actually works. And recognizing that I don't let go. I do not let go. When they say when you say let go, let God, doesn't work for me. When you say pray for the removal of every single defect of character that stands in the way of your usefulness, I can do that. Please take this away. I think that's what the empty me part means. Please take this away. Please take away this stuff that's getting in the way of my relationship with you. So I just wanted to, I have a bunch of things here to read to you. One is I just want to go back to this, the original manuscript and how they backpedaled it and soft pedaled it. You know, the original manuscript, the final thing before they were going to go to the printer, and they passed out apparently maybe as many as 100 copies of this thing and sent it around for people's comments. And as a result of that, they changed some wording. And the original, how it works that we read in meetings, it didn't say we, and it wasn't in the past tense. It was you. They were saying you. And at some of these, you may balk. You may think you can find an easier, softer way. We doubt if you can. So, and then even in the steps, well, listen to this. But there is one who has power. That one is God. You must find him now. That's what it says. Half measures will avail you nothing. You stand at the turning point. Throw yourself under God's protection and care with complete abandon. And then you get the original step 7. Humbly, on our knees, ask God to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back. Huh. And then when they get to, I love this part. When he gets to our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after have been designed to sell you 3 pertinent ideas: that you are alcoholic and cannot manage your own life, that no human power is going to relieve your alcoholism, that God can and will. And then they said, if you're not convinced about A and B and C, you ought to reread the book to this point. Go back through these first 60 pages or throw it away. Anyway, okay. So I still have some stuff I want to try to read you. Oh yeah, okay. So, oh gosh, gotta watch the time. So so this first one is Emmett Fox on the Beatitudes and on the peacemakers. And we read parts of this a couple back when we were in, I can't remember which one it was, but so, and I hope I can read in a way that'll keep your attention, because it's sometimes when people read, it's just easy to drift off. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Here we receive an invaluable practical lesson in the art of prayer. And prayer, be it remembered, is our only means of returning to our communion with God. Now, this is Emmett Fox talking. This is not big book, but he's saying, if you're serious about a relationship with your creator, prayer is the way you do that. I mean, we would add, service is another way we do that, and all of the stuff that are involved in the steps. But prayer is the only real action in the full sense of the word, because prayer is the only thing that changes one's character. a change in character or a change in soul is real change. When that kind of change takes place, you become a different person. And therefore, for the rest of your life, you act in a different way. And I wanted to read, oh yeah, this part. The great essential for success in prayer, for obtaining that sense of the presence of God, which is the secret of healing oneself and others too, of obtaining inspiration, which is the breath of the soul, of acquiring spiritual development, is that we first attain some degree of true peace of mind. So for me, self-condemnation and peace of mind are polar opposites. And I don't have peace of mind when I'm in self-condemnation. This true interior soul peace was known to the mystics as serenity. And the mystics are never tired of telling us that serenity is the grand passport to the presence of God. The sea is smooth as glass that is round about the great white throne. So what I'm trying to pitch here is that anything that we can do to go through self-forgiveness and get out of self-condemnation is going to make it much easier to get to serenity. Now, he's saying serenity is the natural condition of your soul. And the problem is that when I'm stuck up in here, chewing on my resentments and chewing on my fears and chewing on my sense of remorse, there ain't no way. There ain't no way that I'm going to experience peace of soul. And one of the things that we have that even old Saint Ignatius didn't have are amends. This ability to act differently as a way of overcoming our self-condemnation. And one of the things is understanding. I remember hearing this guy talk about this. He got sober in prison and he couldn't get out of prison to make his amends. So he had to do them all in prison where the other people involved were not available. But he said, that's the power of step 8, the power of praying for willingness to do things that the human body and mind don't want to do. And to pray for the willingness and to get the direction. And so one of the magical powers about amends is that we can make amends to somebody that is totally not available by actions that we take toward the other people in our lives, other things in our lives. It's just the great power. And I love the way our book twice within maybe even in the same page. Remember, they talk about we are in this world to play the role God assigns. This is their truth. Is this my truth? No, not my truth. I'm here. I'm assigning my role. Well, would you like it to be your truth? Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe then I could walk hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Okay, are you ready to do what we did to get to that? No, I don't want to. Okay, well, would you like to want to be willing to do this stuff? Yeah, I'd like to want to be willing. Okay, here's the answer. Pray for willingness. That's what 6 is about. That's what 8 is about. God, please help me be willing to do this stuff I don't want to do. Because I want to be closer to you, or whatever it is. So, okay. Okay, I got one more, and then we'll go to open. Oh, wait a minute. No, I got to read you this. I got two more. These are both Emmett Fox. So, so this is Emmett Fox commenting on the Lord's Prayer, and this stuff is in the Reader, and it's also in two of his books. It's in the, if you got Sermon on the Mount, this is when he's commenting on forgive us our trespasses on the Lord's Prayer. Get this. Now remember, you know, this is not AA, so we're outside of the big book here, but I don't think the big book says anything contrary to this, and I don't think this is anything contrary to the big book. Emmett Fox, forgive us our trespasses. The forgiveness of sins is the central problem of life. Sin is a sense of separation from God and is the major tragedy of human experience. It is, of course, rooted in selfishness. It is essentially an attempt to gain some supposed good to which we are not entitled. It is a sense of isolated, self-regarding, personal existence, whereas the truth of being is that all is one. Our true selves are at one with God, undivided from God, expressing God's ideas, witnessing to God's nature. Evil, sin, the fall of man, in fact, is essentially the attempt to negate this truth in our thoughts. We try to live apart from God. We try to do without God. We act as though we had a life of our own. I always love that. You hear somebody say, what I think of as my life, this is my life. And Ignatius is saying, hold on, not so. This ain't your life. We try to do without God. We act as though we had a life of our own, as separate minds, as though we could have plans and purposes and interests separate from God. So he'll say, as a number of people do, that I am a means for God to express itself through me. And I think that's what the third step prayer is saying, you know, take away my difficulties, take away my human difficulties, that my overcoming of these difficulties will demonstrate your power, your love, and your way of life. It says it a number of times. Okay, last thing. And this is easy to find. It's in the Reader. It's January 1 through 6 in the Reader, and it comes from the first article in a book called Power Through Constructive Thinking, and it's called The Wonder Child. And the Wonder Child means our inner spiritual nature, our soul, if you will, as opposed to our human mind and human body. And for us, I just translate it as higher power, higher self, whatever you want. So this is Emmett Fox commenting on Isaiah's verses about the Wonder Child, which is not a prophecy of the coming of Jesus. It's talking about a quality of life that is available to all of us. There exists a mystic power that is able to transform your life so thoroughly, so radically, so completely, that when the process is completed, your own friends would hardly recognize you, and in fact, you would scarcely be able to recognize yourself. It can lift you out of an invalid's bed and free you to go out into the world to shape your life as you will. It can throw open the prison door and liberate the captive. This power can do for you that which is probably the most important thing of all in your present stage. It can find your true place in life for you and put you into it. True place is an Emmett Fox term, but it just means I know I'm glad to be right here, right now. I'm glad to be where I live, doing what I'm doing, feeling this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. This power is no less than the primal power of being, and to discover that power is the divine birthright of all men. So, but where is this wonderful power to be contacted? The answer is simple. This power is to be found within your own consciousness. Just like the spiritual appendix says, the last place most people would look for it. Within your own mentality, there lies this source of energy, this indwelling power, the inner light. And then he quotes unto us a child is born, a son is given, the government shall be upon his shoulder, a name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. These are promises that if I effectively do this stuff, I'll get to experience life is a miracle, life is wonderful. A counselor, I'll feel I'm receiving guidance as to what to do. The mighty power of God, everlasting Father means guider, protector, sustainer. And finally, Prince of Peace means serenity. So it's just wonderful. And I'm running out of time here, but let me just see. Okay. This is January 3rd, let God have your burden. Once you've contacted the power within and have allowed it to take over your responsibilities for you, it will direct and govern all your affairs from the greatest to the least without mistakes. The government shall be upon his shoulder. You are tired and driven and worried and weak and ill and depressed because you have been trying to carry the government upon your shoulder. The burden is too much for you and you have broken down under it. That's playing God. That's me playing God, trying to run my life on my terms. And then he talks about immediately handing over your self-government, which is, our let go and let God, trying to bring this. So, and then he runs through the promises. And I think that's gonna, in the fifth place, the fifth name, just want to read this one, then we'll stop. Fifth place, we receive what is perhaps the greatest name of all, Prince of Peace. Think what perfect peace of soul, if you could attain it, would actually mean to you. If you had real peace of soul, do you suppose that your body could be ill? Given real peace of soul, how easy it would be to find your true place in the world, how quickly and efficiently you could perform your work. Once you have attained true peace of soul, you have made it possible for the child to teach you new things utterly beyond your present understanding. Okay, so next week we're going to go on to 9 and some of the details and techniques and different things about doing step 9. And I want to thank you for being here, and I'm going to gong this gong, and then Jennifer's going to stop the recording, and we're going to have open discussion for a little bit of a while. So I'm trying to think of something inspiring to say, but all I know is I love AA. It just blows my mind that you take a bunch of drunks, we come in here, extreme examples of self-will run riot, and we don't think so. You know, all we know is life has gone horribly wrong. And then we have to hear this stuff. You know, you have to hear this stuff for years. I've read this book pretty hard for years, and I keep finding new stuff or keep understanding it on a deeper level or something. It's just remarkable. And I think the hardest part is just, you know, like we say, keep coming back. Keep coming back. Keep putting this new information in front of your awareness, and keep trying to do the stuff that we ask. It's the real deal. So, okay, gong in this gong, and Jennifer's going to stop the recording, and thank you all for being here. What the hell I'm going to write?